If you've been wanting to grow your own fresh herbs in your backyard instead of having to spend all that money at the grocery store, this is the video for you. By the end of this video, you're going to learn how to start and keep your garden thriving. Some of the easiest herbs to grow are parsley, thyme, cilantro, and you can do it right in your own backyard. This video is going to help you save time, money, and effort on the 3 things that matter most, and that is sun, soil, and the right plants. Let's go over a few tools that you're going to need before you get started, so once you start planting, you're ready to go. You can always do either plants or seeds, or I like to do a combination of both. So have those ready to go. Some gloves, a trowel, most importantly, these little plastic markers and a permanent marker pen, because sometimes when you get your plants from the nursery, they don't always have a tag in it, so you're going to want to know what they are. And especially if you plant seeds, you're going to want to know where you've planted the seeds and what they are. We go over this most important item, our moisture meter. This is going to be so important to keep a track of how your soil is. A lot of times the top of the layer of your soil dries out, but it's still moist underneath. So you're going to have to know whether you should be really watering or not. This is so easy to use. You just stick it right into the soil and you can read it. You really want it to be more on the moist side than the wet side, but this looks pretty good. You do want to keep that top layer moist if you're planting seeds, but once your seeds burst and become little seedlings, then you can cut back on your watering. Come with me, let's find a good spot for our new herb garden. Well, this is pretty good because we've got morning to midday sun. We've got about 3 to 4 hours a day, and that's about all you'll need. Let's talk about what you're going to put your herbs in. What we've got here is a nice raised bed, but you can also do it on the ground. But the main point is to have it the depth, and it should be right around 10 to 12 inches for the most effectiveness. So we've got our planter, and we're going to fill it up with some really good soil. Herbs need soil that is rich in nutrition, but also drains well. So that's what we're going to put in here. You want to just put it in and make sure it comes almost to the top. The most important part about having this raised bed, especially when you're gardening in the desert, is to keep it irrigated. So here we have 1/4 inch irrigation with emitters. There's lots of different types of this, and you can go on YouTube and find a lot of tutorials. They're easy to set up, or get a professional to do it for you. Once you get your irrigation installed, you're going to want to check it on a regular basis. You want your soil moist, like a wrung out sponge. You don't want it really wet because those roots don't like to be soggy. So you don't want to be dry. You don't want it to be too wet. Now that we've got our raised bed all filled with fresh soil, you're going to want to moisten it before planting, because this soil it's very, very dry and it takes a long time for it to absorb the water. So you definitely want to water both the bed and your plants before planting. When you get your plants home from the nursery, you're going to want to dump them in a bucket of water, and that will usually just bubble up, and then they're nice and soaked and ready to go in your raised bed. Here comes the fun part, going to the nursery and picking out what you're actually going to plant in your garden. Before you go, measure out to see how much space you have, and then you can decide of how many plants you need. And I always like to sprinkle in a few flowers like alyssum or marigolds, because those are going to keep away pests, and they're also edible and they're so pretty. So this is a really good way to get started. You want to get your tall plants put in the back first, and then I usually do my flowers in the corner. Now let me show you how you're going to take it out of the container. So you want to squeeze your container and loosen it up, and then I always like to take out the little tag, and then we'll save that to put in later. You just dump it over, and it usually will come right out. Now sometimes the roots will be quite bound around the bottom of it, and then you'll just break it apart so that the roots know to start reaching outwards. They want to keep circling around in the pot. You want them to have a little bit of freedom. Now you Dig your hole about the same size, so when you put it in, it's going to come right to the top here. So you can always test it out. Once you dig your hole, you can put your plant in and see if you think it's going to fit. Yeah, that's just going to fit just right. So I've got my hole here, and I put my plant in, and now I just cover it up, and then I'm going to give it a nice little press just to get the air bubbles out and have it nice and solid into the, gently though, nice and gentle push, and now it's ready to go. All right, let me talk about what I've decided to plant here. As you can see, this planter looks stuffed, and that's just fine. But here's the tips I want to show you. So in the back here, I've got some thyme, basil, parsley, and cilantro. These all get tall, so I'm putting them in the back. In the middle, I've sprinkled some flowers in. This is a marigold, another cilantro, even a lettuce. Alyssum is a lovely plant that will drape over the edge. It will soften the edge. Thyme is very drapey. This is chamomile, and I love this because I can make tea out of it, and it also has the most precious, dainty, white daisy-like flower. The oregano, again, is going to drape over, and so is another thyme and the alyssum. So that's the idea of knowing what plant is going to grow tall and what plant is going to drape. Well, let me just tell you, that did not take long at all. I mean, maybe 10 minutes at the most. So here's everything's planted. Things look a little droopy. That's very natural. I'm going to get in here with a nice gentle hose, give it a good soaking, and by tomorrow, everything should be perked up. Now let's talk about annuals versus perennials. And this is a little bit more advanced, but I think you'll get the hang of it. A perennial plant is one that comes back year after year. Let's talk about an annual. That means an annual. That means it only lasts one growing season. So let's go through what we've planted so that you'll know what to look for when things start looking a little bit peaked. So here's your thyme. This is a perennial. It will come back year after year. This is oregano. Oregano also will come back year after year. The cilantro is a cool weather plant, and it's going to fizzle out once it gets hot. This is chamomile. It will come back. This is a lettuce. This is once it gets a little bit too hot, it's going to bolt, which means a stem will come up through the middle, and it will get bitter, and it's done. Basil. Basil is a warm season plant. I am planting this in September, so I have a few more months. Once it gets frost, our first frost date here in Las Vegas is around November 28th. This is going to get brown and bye-bye. So we will keep it alive and harvest it until then. Parsley is actually a trickier plant. It is a biannual, which means it will come back one time. So once we're done with it, summer, it will sort of look like it's dead, but then we'll just cut it back and it will come back one more time. Let's talk about if you want to use seeds in your raised bed. This is always a good idea to do if you just want to add a little something. If you've got a blank space, this is what a basil seed looks like. And the way you plant a seed is you'll see you just put them in your hand and you can just dust them around the top of the soil. You don't have to actually plant them. These are very tiny seeds, and what you want to do is really just sprinkle a tiny bit of soil on top, and then you'll lightly moisten, and that's all you'll need to do. And don't forget, you always want to put a marker in and tell you what it is you planted. Also, here's a little marigold seed that sprouted up. This took about 10 days, and for it to become a full marigold like this, it's going to be a good 30 days. So as you can see, using plant seedlings are a lot faster than trying to grow something from seed. We're going to talk about mint. This is controversial. Most people say that mint is invasive, and yes, it can be. So I've actually grown it here in its own pot. But if you find that you're going to use your mint a lot, you can grow it in your raised bed, but you just have to really keep it pruned up. So mint is so easy to grow. It likes a little bit of shade, but I would recommend putting it in its own pot. I also enjoy growing my herbs in large pots. And remember, here in the desert, you want to have at least a 24-inch pot because they do dry out. Now, I do have a quarter-inch irrigation line here with a emitter at the end, and that would just be enough to irrigate this pot. So there you have it. These are all the tips and things that you'll need to have a successful herb garden. This is an entry-level experience. Once you grow herbs, you probably are going to want to start going into vegetables and fruits, maybe even fruit trees. It's a wonderful hobby, and it can be done even here in the desert climate.